Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, let's look at beyond that humiliating display and focus on the larger picture, the voting patterns of women in the recent elections. We're talking about Virginia, New Jersey and New York City. What does it tell us?
It's quite stark and quite divided, like direly divided. I was looking up historically, and up until just before Bill Clinton, it was pretty 50-50 in terms of how women voted for Democrats versus Republicans in relation to men. And then after that, sort of the steady decline, about 10 to 15 points, women always vote Democrat. And then if you double click within that, non-white women, 80% Democrat. The uneducated women, college-educated, very heavy, 60% Democrat. And single women, that's the issue. Jesse Kelly calls this the beating heart. He adds on SSRIs of the Democrat Party are these women, single women. It's 60 to 70%. That's how they're voting. And so if Republicans want to win in the near term, the men have to vote more, because that's the other thing. Women are a little bit larger part of the electorate. About 53% of women vote. They're more organized. They get themselves to the polls or mail in their ballots. And then longer term, encouraging marriage, because married women, still in the majority, 55% vote for Republicans. The whole perspective changes when you're married and have children.
Absolutely, and that's what's so stark, because I think it was the most recent presidential election. You were looking at how married men voted, unmarried men, married women. They were all majority Republican, but by small percentages Republican. And then you had the unmarried women, which were by a huge margin Democrat. Yes. And that was what really stood out. It's just fascinating to look at those patterns. But let's talk about the BBC. Things are going from bad to worse for the taxpayer-funded broadcaster. They aired that deliberately doctored footage of Donald Trump, and now he's seeking to hold the BBC responsible for what he's labelled false, defamatory, disparaging and inflammatory statements. He's given the BBC a Friday deadline, Kosha, to make things right, or he's going to launch a $1 billion lawsuit, and we're talking about $1 billion US here.
This is really something, because it is so egregious in terms of what that cut-up did and how they were basically stitching together things to suggest that he was actually calling an insurrection. And it's interesting because Trump is not shy to use litigation as one of the tools in his arsenal. He's sued in his personal capacity, civil lawsuits, various American outlets, and always the suits are above $1 billion, $2 billion. I think the CBS suit was $20 billion was the suit, even though they settled for 16. So it's sort of like a tactic for him. Do the big ask, and then you may settle where you settle. All the funding is going to the beautiful ballroom or his library, which is kind of funny. This would be the first time he would sue a foreign outlet. I don't think that has happened. The libel laws are not as protective of the press in the UK. There's a lower bar, and the burden of proof would be on them, which is different from the US. So there's a high chance that they would fear that. And they do have a precedent of having settled. They've settled all the way in the 90s with Richard Branson to some politicians recently. And this is, I think, at a gigantic scale beyond that, because they're alleging that the sitting US president incited an insurrection. That's basically what they did. So this is not going to end well for them.
No, and they aired this a week before the election, so he can argue that could have caused maximum damage. And like you said, the laws are harsher in Britain for the press, and Trump has had remarkable success with securing significant payouts from multiple media outlets in the US. I didn't know he was putting all the money towards the ballroom and the library.
Yes,
that's hilarious.
I think it's also a PR thing that he's not taking it to line his own pockets, but he's trying to divert it to something, for the people. And I think he's tracking at about $100 million so far in payouts he's received.
That's not bad. Now, the shutdown is over. Democrats did fold, but not until after the elections that we spoke about in Virginia, New Jersey and New York City. How do you see this shutdown saga? It was the longest in US history.
41 days. The second longest was in Trump's first term. I'm sure that's not a coincidence, 35 days. I see it as two things. One is performative. All of politics is performative. Everybody's playing a part. Even this alleged civil war that's going on between the Democrats right now, and they're angry with the aide who caved, quote unquote. They all know it, and they're all deciding what role to play. That's my view. And also, it isn't missed that they very conveniently decided to end it right after the election, where the Republicans got trounced. I don't think this would have made a big difference, because Republicans really got trounced, and I don't think the outcome would have been any different. But maybe on the margins, it played a bit of a role, because it makes the party in power look bad. The second thing is it's temporary, so it's only until the 30th of January. So in very short order, after Christmas, we're going to be back here again, and another shutdown could very well be looming. And that's why this whole discussion about whether or not to abolish the filibuster is facing growing calls. A lot of people want that. It's very controversial. It could lead to short-term gain with long-term pain. Is one view for the Republicans. The other view is you're in power now. You may not be in power for much longer. So go for maximalist strategy. And I think we're going to see that debate continue to bubble because the shutdown saga is going to be back again on the front pages February 1st.
Well, did they achieve what they wanted to? Did they get a bump going into these elections? Is it something that they will look back on and say, yep, it served a purpose and, we can expect to see it again?
I think a little bit on the margins. Just the margins were so high, though, with how the Democrats defeated the Republicans that they probably would have won that maybe by a little bit of a lesser margin. I don't see the outcome being fundamentally different because it does make the Republicans look bad. And the other problem is the sticking point in this whole shutdown was Obamacare and whether to have those subsidies extend. Should they extend when we know so many illegals are taking advantage of the system? And it's so crazy because that was decades ago when Obamacare was put into place, and now these subsidies are going to expire. And the average person doesn't know all this and won't pin the blame on Obama, who's been out of office for multiple terms. It will get hung around Trump's neck. So in that sense, you could say that the Democrats did succeed a little bit, but they've also paid a price, and there's a bit of a civil war in their own party.
Now, we're going to talk about the division within the conservative ranks in the US, but the Democrats have got divisions as well. And moreover, this shutdown, the 8 Democrat Senate caucus defectors who joined the Republicans to reopen the government are facing a almighty backlash. And so is Chuck Schumer, kosher, for not stopping them. So there are Democrats, some of the more radical ones who seem to be leading the party these days, saying this was a capitulation. We should have kept going.
Yes, and most of those are from purple moderate states to even red states where there's somehow a Democrat in power. So they're a little bit, in terms of their personal political situation, more vulnerable. But the Chuck Schumer thing is interesting because he wasn't able to whip them all into place. And on a personal level, many people are speculating that at some point sooner, if not later, AOC is going to challenge him for that Senate seat in New York. And that's just very interesting, where she is on the rise in some way with where that party is. He's ostensibly of kind of the old guard, Nancy Pelosi retired, et cetera. So that's going to be very interesting. And everybody's watching if he's going to just preemptively announce his retirement like Nancy Pelosi or risk a possible challenge from AOC.
And what an incredible job Nancy Pelosi has done to increase her own personal wealth during her time in public office. You look at what her salary was during that period and how her net wealth or net asset position has increased. It is quite remarkable. So if she can have any stock tips she wants to impart, I will be following them very religiously.
She's Warren Buffett trapped in the body of a congresswoman, that's what I say.
Absolutely. Now, before you go, there is these deep divisions forming within conservative ranks. You've got the likes of Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Matt Walsh on the one side, and then you've got Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin and others on the other. There's all sorts of calls to disavow certain people, to not platform them, a form of really cancel culture that you thought was something that the left specialised in. How do you see that? And is it just going to hold back the Republicans going into the midterms if there's all this infighting in the conservative ranks?
It's not helpful. And Republicans always were famous for having this circular firing squad, they used to say. And the Democrats, say what you will, they're very united generally, and they put on a united front. So it's certainly not helpful. But maybe it was unavoidable. And this is the party that likes to debate issues, and that leads to that. The root cause of it is the Israel issue.
Yeah,
that is, of course, a deep topic, but that is has been brewing for a long time. There's a sharp divide between those two camps. And then off the back of that, I think censorship and free speech and all of that hangs into that, where one side is saying that some views are so bad, we shouldn't be wasting time, we shouldn't be platforming, and we should be canceling people who do that. And the other side says, no, that's against the principle of free speech. So I think that's sort of the 1-2 punch of this issue, and it's going to be very interesting. The last thing I will say on that is that the side against Israel, or at least not against, but kind of neutral and feels like the U.S. has done enough, is ascendant, because everybody under the age of 30 is on that side. I would say the Tucker, Matt Walsh side of the camp. And so that is the side growing, and the side that favors Israel is literally dying out of the electorate. They're the elderly people, 70 plus. So this is not going to end.
That is in itself a topic we've discussed previously, because some of the polling that's come out, and I don't know if that polling will change now that the war is over, but certainly there were dramatic shifts in the public opinion towards Israel across the board. And with younger people, the shifts were enormous, from memory, 40, 50 points. So
Right, in such a short period of time.
in a few years. So that is certainly something I think would be concerning a lot of people. But yeah, we'll keep watching that debate. Kosha Gator, thank you so much for your time tonight.